I've been living in 4 different countries, and next year I'm moving to my 5th one. So with this rich experience, I want to share some tips on how to facilitate your mental state or mental condition when you move to a new country and when you experience a culture shock. So if you're interested, please keep watching and let's get started. What is culture shock? This is like a set of emotions you experience when you move or travel to a new country. This is like your reaction on local features, on local culture. That's why it's like culture shock. And this condition, it has different stages. So the first stage is like a honeymoon, when you are happy with everything going on and new country seems perfect to you. But then you move to a new stage, a stage when you realize that it's not perfect, that there is a set of disadvantages, and then you have to choose like whether you are ready to cope with these disadvantages or maybe you want to go home. And the outcome of this culture shock can be that you adapt to local culture and you also keep your culture inside of you, or maybe some negative outcomes, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. So what can you do? What steps can you follow in order to facilitate this culture shock so that it could go smoothly? Here, an important thing is also that even if the culture is not that different from your own, you also go through a culture shock. But you may not notice it because this culture shock is smooth for you, since the difference is not very big. But when the cultures are completely different, for example, when I moved to China after living in Russia, oh my god, your culture shock will be crazy. So let's learn how to cope with it and not to get depressed or something like that. What can you do before going to a country? Of course, you may want to do some research. Of course, you can read like articles about like how to move to this country, but I'm talking more about some cultural or historic things. Because if you, for example, find out more about the history of the country, I'm not talking about like taking a whole course like to learn about the country, but just some significant things, cultural things. You will be able to understand local people better. And then when you meet the local people, you meet with their mentality, with their local habits. They would not seem as weird to you as they could have. So it's very important, if you don't want to know, to experience really huge shock when you arrive to a new country. Another thing which you can do is, of course, to start learning a local language, which is really, really important. Even if people in the country where you're moving to, they speak English and they speak good English, well, learning a local language is not only about like communication itself, but it's again about culture, again about mentality and local things. Because when you, for example, understand a structure of a foreign language, you may even understand the reasons like why local people think like that. So it could really give you so many good insights about local people, local culture, and the country itself. I really advise you to do that. After arriving, very important tip is not to compare everything you see, for example, with your home country or with other countries you visited before. Because when you compare something, there is always a positive or a negative connotation. For example, here they do this and this and this better. It's really great. And then you say, oh my god, why are they doing it like this? In my home country, they're not doing that. So this is a bad connotation and gives you bad emotions, and you start to pay more attention to disadvantages. That's why it's not really great to compare. Of course, if you're not like having a blog or something on YouTube, I have to compare the things because I want to share my experience and to give you like more details about some things. But overall, if you do not have anything like that, just don't compare. But the second tip, try to accept the differences. Fighting the differences in a new country, it's useless because, well, they will not change only because you want it, and they shouldn't change only because you want it, because you're a foreigner here, and no one really asked you to come and to move to this country, and no one asked to change the country or the culture. Either you accept the differences or you go home. That's the thing. Not to suffer emotionally, just don't fight it, accept it. Or again, if you understand that it's really hard, just choose to go home. There is nothing bad about it. it's okay, because for some people it's really hard to move to different countries or to move to this specific country. It's okay, it's fine. You just have to really understand how strong you are mentally and if you're ready to take this challenge to go through it. Another thing which will help you to go to this second stage when you understand that the place is not perfect is integration into society. So if you communicate with local people more and you ask questions, for example, why are you doing this and that and not this and that, you will get more answers and you will be able to accept more things. That's very important. If you study at the university, try to find local students to communicate with, or international students, because they are going through the same process as you do, and it's very important to find like somebody who can help you with their experience, or who can understand you what you're going through. Don't study at the university. If you, for example, work in a country, just again try to meet your colleagues after work or something like that. Or if you do not do anything of what I've mentioned, you try to find, for example, courses to study, to learn something new, and you will find people maybe with similar interests, and it will be easier for you to integrate and to become a part of local society. And the final thing is, of course, to balance. Final outcome, if you successfully go through the second stage when, for example, you realize that, okay, this country is not perfect, but I'm ready to cope with the disadvantages of this country and I'm ready to stay here. So there can be different outcomes. As I said in the very beginning, you adapt to local culture and you keep your culture inside. So you just mix some maybe routine things and you try to learn something new, and it's really great. I love this outcome. But another outcome which can happen is if you surround yourself only with people from your own culture, you will not have a chance to adapt and you will be stuck in your culture and you will be isolated from local society, which is not really good. There are some people who live like this and they don't mind, so we cannot really say whether it's good or not. But personally for me, well, it's not the best outcome, because when I move to a new country, I want to be part of the society, part of the community. There also can be an option that, for example, you failed to adapt to a new country and you decide to go home. We cannot say that it's something bad or negative. Of course, if your goal was like to stay in a country, it can be a bit negative, but it could still be a really valuable experience for you, even if after living in a new country you go home. The best option for me, and maybe for most of you, is to balance, not to reject your own culture, not to reject the culture you're living in. And with this final step, I think you will be good in a new place, in a new country. Let me know in the comments below if you are going to move to a new country anytime soon, and which country is it. And if you want to know more about living and moving abroad, just let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.